good. So good, so good, so good. Do, 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 do. Hey, 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 Cindy Lou of Be Bold You. This is the podcast. Whoop, whoop. And we have with us today Marie Larson. She's a
Hi.
life consultant with Vibrant Life Consulting. Hey, if you've never met me, I'm Cindy Lou. I'm the founder and creator of Be Bold You, and we are going to jump right in and let Marie actually introduce herself a bit more because I want this show to be all about her and what she does. It is amazing. If you've never heard of brain spotting, if you've ever had any trauma and you've wanted to get out of it and you
Mhm.
don't want to go through it again, this could be the answer for you.
Yeah,
Marie, would you just introduce yourself a little more?
yeah, absolutely. A little bit about my background. I have worked in the area of emotional healing for the past 10 years. I'm passionate about it. I love seeing people get free emotionally and just being able to be their true selves that God made them to be. And I've worked in nonprofit for 12 and a half years. And most recently, I worked at Minnesota Adult and Teen Challenge, which is a recovery program, Christian recovery program that helps people with substance abuse issues. And I was like a chaplain, kind of pastoral counselor there. So I got a lot of experience working with a lot of different people and just seeing the process of emotional healing over and over and over again with people that have really high trauma, and just seeing how that all worked. And after that, I felt the Lord calling me to start my own business. So I started Vibrant Life Consulting in 2018. And I really, the passion behind it was after being in nonprofit for 12 and a half years and really seeing the burnout that happens, the lie that's in leadership and ministry that you're supposed to be done having your own problems when you're helping other people. And we laugh at it, but it's like we all kind of believe it at some level. Like
Mm.
you'll hear it in comments like, well, oh, I can't believe they're in leadership because they have this issue. Or something comes out and they're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they're in ministry, and it's like, so do you expect those people to be
They
non-human?
do though.
You
Some
know?
people do. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
and it's both the people that are under leadership and ministry and those that are in leadership and ministry that believe it. And so there's this kind of thought process that if I'm in that role and I have a problem, there must be something wrong with me. And so the tendency is either I need to step out of that role, or there's something, I need to hide it, because if people knew this about me, then they wouldn't want me in this position, which if we're hiding it and we're ignoring it, we're not going to get healthy, and we're not going to get through the problem. It's just going to keep magnifying and getting bigger. So my passion was really like, we need somebody that helps the helpers, somebody that pastors the pastors, somebody that helps the helpers thrive. Because we're all human, we all have issues from here to heaven. We might as well work on them. And the more we work on them, the more we can help other people, without getting hooked by their issues. And the more we get healed, the more we can help other people step into the same healing that we've gotten, because we can kind of bring people to the level that we've gotten in many ways. And so that was my passion, is really helping people that are in helping professions, whether that's teachers, parents, those in the health professions, missionaries, pastors, counselors. I love working with counselors, and all those different things. So then I discovered, through a friend, discovered brain spotting in 2019 and went through the training to do that. And I was really excited when I went through the training for that, because um, it's a healing community that has that healthy mindset. A lot of healing communities that I've been connected with or talked with people in them, they really operate under that lie that you're supposed to be done. You're supposed to have it figured out by now.
That
And
there's a time and a point where we become so healthy we no longer need counseling. We no longer need
like, you have it
healing. We no
figured out
longer
by now.
okay.
Yeah, like, oh, you've arrived now. You should be able. Yeah, like you can just coast now, and or you've gone through this education, so you know better. Like, you should just be able to figure yourself out, which, I'm sorry, you can't be objective about yourself. Like, you can't
Mhm.
counsel yourself, you can't often heal yourself. Not to say you can't do things with the Lord by yourself. I'm not saying that. But we need other people. God didn't create us to be islands. He created us to be in community and not be isolated. And so we all need other people. And to think that you don't is pride and gets us into other problems, you know? And so what I found in this community is they were saying, if you're a brain spotter and you get triggered by one of your clients, hello, you're human. Of course, you're getting triggered by another human. Of course, you still have your own stuff that you're not aware of fully. And so they really have this attitude of like, if you notice something as a therapist, as a healer, as, whatever, that's okay. Just go get a brain spotting session done for yourself. Like, take care of it now that you noticed it. And I was like,
Yeah,
oh my gosh, like,
that
healthy.
that is healthy for every human. Like whether you're a brain spotting specialist, whether you're a counselor, no matter what you do,
Right.
whether you're a parent, like sometimes things would happen to my kids when I was parenting. I'm just thinking of this right now. Like things would happen
Mhm.
to my kids at school, in high school especially. They'd get picked on or they'd come home upset or whatever. And I would get triggered to things that happened in my high school years. Even
Mhm.
when my first son was getting ready to go to high school, I went, I'm not sure I'm ready for this. Like I
Mhm.
knew that there were going to
This
be
is gonna
moments
be interesting.
during that, all the stuff that happened to me in high school was going to come rushing back. Right.
Right.
And so, yeah, it was interesting. I really wish I'd known about brain spotting when I was raising my children. I probably would have
Right.
come to see you a lot.
Yes. Well, and one of my thoughts about this is like triggering is not bad. And a lot of healing communities look at like, how do we help you avoid your triggers? And I'm like, no, like, I'm somebody that's always been a little bit more like, let's go at the pain, like, let's go straight at the pain and let's figure it out and get through it. I haven't
you
always been that way in my life. Like, I went through, some deep grief when I was younger, and I, I stuffed it. I was a royal stuffer, and I just stuffed it. Didn't realize I stuffed it. Didn't realize I got angry at God about it, but I did, and it came out sideways for like 10 years until I
yeah,
finally like learned how to unpack it and deal with it because I was
you and
young
I
when it
talked
happened.
about this. Totally
Yeah.
talking over the top of you, but you and I talked about this because we both did the same thing. We
Mhm.
both stuffed it down, didn't even realize we were like
No.
I'm good. I'm just good. I'm happy all the time. I'm a
Mhm.
positive person. I'm always positive. And while that is a part of who we are, in that
Except,
situation, in that situation,
yeah.
we were not aware of triggers. And I would avoid triggers.
Mhm.
I had someone recently come to me at church and ask, I'm a leadership at our church, and ask, we had a speaker come in. Let me just tell the whole story. A leader at my church, we had a speaker come in. He was talking about stuff that was happening in Africa to women. And it triggered some of the women in our congregation because they had those things happen here in New Zealand. And one of the comments that he made was, at least you guys don't have to deal with what they deal with over there. And I was like, ooh, yeah. So at the end of the service, I invited them up. I was like, look, when something like this happens, your opportunity is to have healing. It's
Mhm.
being brought up and you're feeling it because you are in a position where God can give you some healing. Will it be
Mhm.
100% healed today? I don't know. Will you not get triggered again? I don't know.
Yeah.
But if we close the door to ever talking about what's happening in the world, we're shutting the door to our healing
Mhm.
in a lot of ways, which is mind blowing right now as I say that.
Mhm.
So many people don't want to look at what's happening in the world because it
Yep.
hurts too much.
Well, and triggering is an opportunity to find a place inside of you that's not healed. So it's simply like, oop, it's like if somebody's touching your arm and all of a sudden you're like, whoa, there's a bruise there. And I didn't realize there was a bruise there. Right. Well,
Yeah.
or there's a cut there. Oh, well, now I know about it. So now I can address it. And that's the thing with triggering is it's allowing you to understand, hey, there's a wound there. You don't need to feel shame about it. You don't need to be embarrassed about it. Everybody has them. But now that you know about it, you can address it. Whoop, whoop. More opportunities for healing. And so with my friends, I'm always like, yay for triggering. Awesome. And it doesn't feel fun in the moment, but if I can keep that mentality even for myself when I get triggered, I can then go at it and heal it. And brain spotting is really designed to do that as well. Like I said, other healing communities were kind of like, avoid the triggers, don't go too much into the pain, be careful what you open up. And there's some truth to that, some wisdom in that, absolutely. But brain spotting is like when you're in a safe environment, when you're with a safe person, like let's go at the pain, not be afraid of it. Let's understand people are super resilient. People that have gone through trauma, yeah, they're traumatized, but they're also super resilient. They survived it. And so
Yeah.
they can also survive the healing process, and not treating them with kid gloves, but treating them as brave people that are strong and are able to go at this. And that as they heal it, they're going to get even stronger, and get even more confident in who God made them to be, and in what they can do as a healed person. And so brain spotting will, maybe I should explain the process of a little bit about what brain
Yeah.
spotting is,
Great.
because we haven't gone
That's
there.
great.
So brain spotting is based on a lot of brain science. I'm a little bit of a brain science nerd. I love learning about the brain. It's so complex. God made us so amazing. We've been studying it for hundreds of years and we're still just touching the tip of the iceberg, which I think is awesome. Brains Brain spotting is based on the idea that where you look determines how you will feel in some ways. A better explanation, I feel like, is where you look determines what part of the brain you're accessing. So we
Mm.
are always like, you'll notice people's eyes kind of dart around as a normal part of conversation, as a normal part of anything. We're looking around and doing different things. Sometimes you'll find that somebody keeps going back to a similar spot like this. And often what's happening is they are accessing that part of their brain for that memory, that body thing, whatever is going on. Or perhaps they're talking about something that's disturbing and their brain is actually resourcing itself and looking in a place of the brain that is comforting. And they're actually almost like self-soothing by where they're looking. Okay. And they're
Okay.
resourcing themselves. Like our brain is that amazing. And our brain remembers everything. Now, our conscious mind doesn't remember everything, but we have a conscious, a subconscious. We have, the front brain, middle brain, hind brain, and we're not necessarily in our conscious memory able to pull everything up, but our unconscious, our subconscious remembers everything. So there's a lot of times where you'll have an issue and you're like, I don't understand why I'm reacting this way. I don't understand why I'm having this much anxiety about this thing in my life or this decision I have to make or whatever. And so what we'll do in a brain spotting session is we'll have you, let's say you have a decision to make and it's causing high anxiety. We'll just use that as the example. So somebody might come in that and I'd say, okay, think about the decision you have to make. Let yourself feel the anxiety. This is where we go straight at the pain. We don't say skirt around it. It's like, let yourself feel that anxiety. Let it get big. Okay. And then where do you feel that in your physical body? Because we want them connected to their physiology.
Yeah.
And so that it can talk to us, because God created our bodies, minds, and spirits very complex. You can't separate the physical, emotional, and spiritual. It's all intertwined. And so we'll get them connected to where they're feeling it in their body. And then we'll check their field of vision. Now, sometimes as they talk about it, you'll already find where the spot is because you'll find them going like this back to the same spot over and over. They call that gaze spotting. And sometimes that's all you do is you go, look, no, I notice you keep going to the upper right. Like, let's stick with that spot. Other times I'll scan their field of vision very slowly until we find it, either because they internally tell me like, oh my gosh, the feeling got really big. It's like, okay, we found where it was kind of locked in the brain, so to speak, unprocessed. So trauma can often get locked in the brain in an unprocessed state. and then it can kind of keep causing these disturbances when you stumble across it. So we want to find those spots and help process them. And so either that, where they'll tell me the emotion gets big, or sometimes the body, the physiology will talk to us and kind of tell us where that's locked. And the body will react in different ways that you can visibly see. Your neurology will talk to you. And so wherever that spot is, we'll lock on that for the whole session. We'll have them hold that spot. And I compare it to like if the eyes are like a cursor, like a mouse cursor, and then there's a part in the brain that's being moved around. It's like we find that spot in the brain, we double click on it, and we open it up. Okay. And by holding the eye position, it props that door open, so to speak, so that whatever is in there can come out. Emotions, body sensations, unprocessed emotions, and we can let the body unwind. It kind of starts this unwinding process of letting that stuff be processed, whether it's physically, you'll sometimes feel a lot of pains or different things moving throughout the body as the body processes it, or emotionally, you'll have really strong emotion come out. Or as connection, like people will notice what I call spider webbing is what they kind of call it, where you'll bounce from memory to memory to memory to memory, but your brain is rapidly connecting all the dots for you of like, look, all these things are connected. As a brain spotter, we practice on each other, so I've had many brain spotting sessions myself. And it's fascinating to me how my brain will go boop, 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 boop. And I'll go, oh my gosh, I had no idea my brain connected this and this and this and this. And I'm reacting to this situation because it reminded me of something way back when. And I didn't realize I had made this association, believe this lie, etc. Okay. And so think about those old phone cords.
So hold on. I'm writing notes. I'm like writing notes. This is like so good. I'm gonna have to come back and watch this again too. But I realized I had to like get my notepads. For those who are watching this live or on the replay, that's what I was doing. I was like getting so I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so good.
Yes.
So I just want to dig a little bit deeper into the spidering thing because I think that is a key for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. I have a sense people are being triggered by something and have no idea that leads back through these connections that we've made to something that happened maybe when they were even like 3 years old.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's not about the thing that happened when you were 3 causing you to behave this way today. Because I think that a lot of people try to make that jump. It's that when you were 3, you started thinking this. And then when you were 6, because of what you started thinking at 3, you started thinking this with this happened, right? So another event happens when you're 12 and you add something to that pattern. Is that what you're talking about? So you're actually creating the spider web of events that lead you to now this behavior or this feeling.
Yeah, in some way, it's like we create thought processes or ways of dealing with things. And when we're a little kid, we don't know, and so we use what we've seen, what's been modeled for us, which could be healthy, could be not. We use even like what has been passed down. So if you want to talk about like spiritual generational stuff, and so we just react as a kid to what's happening to us, but then we almost like create a program. Think of like a computer. We create this program that starts running. And then the next time a similar situation to that happens, our brain goes through the file cabinet and goes, oh, here's another situation when something similar happened. Here's how we reacted, and it basically worked because we're still alive. So let's do that again. And so then you start these patterns throughout your life. And like you were saying, you might 3, 12, 15, 20, you keep having these situations, and then you're strengthening that thought process. You're strengthening that core belief, that lie, whatever you want to call it, that brain neurological way of handling things. But it's to this point where you don't even remember the original incident, and you just have this program running behind the scenes on your computer of thought, so to speak, and you're not even aware it's there except when it gets triggered and used. Like, have you ever had the situation where you're like, oh my gosh, I am having a 3-year-old temper tantrum inside of me, but I am an adult. I should not be feeling like this, right? And we
I've actually
recognize,
I've seen a 60-something-year-old lady not only have the physical like feeling inside of her,
yeah,
she laid down on the ground.
right.
She like
And that,
full on had the tantrum. I'm like, oh
right.
my goodness. And we couldn't figure out what was going on with her.
And
But it's probably something
that
similar.
can be like, you can do like parts work, or, that can be another thing as well. But part of it is sometimes I'll have a belief rise up in me that gets triggered, and I'm like, that doesn't even logically make sense. Like, as an adult, I can look at that and go, that doesn't make sense. And yet I can feel that inside of me, I believe it. And sometimes it's because it's got 3-year-old logic. Like, you got it when you made that belief when you were 3, and it's still kind of, that program is still running, um, without you really realizing it, and you're still operating under that same belief system. And so anyway, the point is, like, you'll hit something in adulthood, you're like, why am I reacting like this? And sometimes brain spotting can be helpful to help you connect the dots and help you see, hey, this is why. Now, there's times even in brain spotting where, um, the way it will feel is more physically. You're not getting a lot of memories. You're not getting all this connection going on. You're just feeling emotion maybe, or you're just feeling physical sensations, and you just know you feel better when you're done. Like, you don't even 100% know what your body's processing, but it's processing stuff. And God made our bodies so complex and amazing. He made our brains to heal. And so when you tap into the body's innate ability that God put in there to heal, it's really good at what it does. So whether you physically or like mentally understand what's happening, there's always healing happening when you tap into the brain's ability to process and to heal. And so they kind of talk
So
about it's impossible. Go ahead.
I'm like, are you saying then, and I believe you are, I just want to clarify for the listeners who are here. I think I'm understanding that you don't necessarily have to go through that memory again. You don't have to repeat that memory in a brain spotting session in order to have healing from that memory.
Not necessarily. And everybody is different. Every brain spotting session is different because it's individual to you and your brain, right? And I also believe God knows what we can handle. And so some people will have the memory. Other people, it might just be a physical, they're just having this physical sensations, and healing is happening even though they're not like going through the memory. One thing I like to point out too with brain spotting and why people like it, why it's different, is you don't necessarily have to verbally process. Many people like to verbally process, and that will be part of it, but you don't have to. And so even like military personnel are really loving brain spotting because they might not be super verbal processing people, or they don't want to talk about it. And you don't have to. What brain spotting is all about is the dual attunement. Like, they call it dual attunement, where I, as the practitioner, am really tuned into you and your body and your physiology and your neurology. And I'm watching and like just supporting you as your brain goes through this process. So the dual attunement is a really big part of it. The visual spot. We also use bilateral sound while you're doing it because it activates both hemispheres. So we often have people wearing like headphones or earbuds or something, and we play music that's fading from left to right. Okay. And that's like a gentle, supportive thing that really helps contain the process, as well as helps the whole brain to be activated while we're doing it and stay activated so that it's involved. I also add spiritual connections as
Before
we're
we go
doing.
there,
Yeah. Yeah.
before we go there, because I do want to
Mhm.
go there. One of the things that I put in the advertisement that I put out for this was basically being able to heal from trauma without having to go through the trauma again. I think
Mhm.
that there's a whole lot of people who are afraid or
Mhm.
weary about going and getting counseling or getting help because they don't want to have to walk through it all. They don't want to have to tell it to somebody else. Even if
Mhm.
they're willing to walk through it themselves in their emotions to heal, because that
Mhm.
may have to happen, that they
Yeah.
don't have to tell it to the person who's doing the brain spotting.
And
So
you
they
don't
do
have to in
not
brain
have
spotting.
to relive
Hmm.
You don't have
Now,
to relive it
I
out loud. You don't have to speak it out loud, is what I'm saying.
yes, yeah, I can't guarantee where their brain's gonna go. That's the thing, you
Right.
know?
Exactly.
But yeah, they don't have to say any of it out loud if they don't want to. It's been really nice because I can do, sessions with somebody and it's like, I don't feel comfortable sharing that much, but I can do it in my head and I can just share little pieces with them so they can kind of help guide me through the process, but I don't have to go into the details with them, you know? So it can
Which
feel
is
very.
fabulous for somebody who's been through severe
Mhm.
trauma or who has inflicted severe trauma on someone else who now is wanting to make amends for that and heal from that. I'm thinking of like if you're a drug addict and now you're,
Mhm.
recovering and you did some things as a drug addict that you're not real proud of and you don't really want to talk
Mhm.
about and you really want to forget. However, you can't just totally stuff it down as we were talking about in the beginning and say that it
Mhm.
just didn't exist. You really need to go through a healing process at some point to be able to completely be released from it. Your body, because your body's
Yeah.
holding it somewhere. The
Yes.
memories are holding it somewhere.
Yep.
And if you've been that person who's maybe done things in their lifetime that they are not proud of, we'll just say it that way, right? That you maybe wish you hadn't done, brain spotting is an option that really
Mhm.
possibly could help very well.
Or even in the instance of like the military personnel where they don't want to inflict that trauma on other people. They don't want to have to say
Yeah,
what happened and traumatize somebody else, like it. And so
yeah.
sometimes when that's a concern for them, like you can still go through it, you can still do the healing process and you don't have to verbally process it. So
I do
and
the
just
same thing. I'm totally doing a commercial right here, and I'm letting you know. I do the same thing with my Becoming Bold You process, which I wrote a book, and this episode is sponsored by the Becoming Bold You. And this seems like the perfect place to say this. We get to choose who we become and who we show up in the world as. And if what you need is healing to do that, then this may be a real good option for you. But if you don't have the Becoming Bold You book, please go ahead and get it because it includes things about your personality, things about your how you perceive the world, education, experiences. All of those things are a part of who you are and who you're showing up in the world as, and that includes your healing journey. So
Mhm.
we're going to get back to this healing journey now and talk a little bit more with Marie Larson. And if you don't have the book, go get it. It is on Amazon, Becoming Bold You. Back to you, Miss Marie.
Yes. So just a little history on brain spotting too. If you've heard of EMDR before, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. It is a therapy that came out quite a few years ago now. It didn't become popular until more recently. I feel like therapies have to be out for quite a while before it becomes more mainstream. But David Grand is the guy who came up with brain spotting. He was an EMDR therapist, very, or is, he is trained in EMDR. And he was working on somebody one day, and EMDR, you do bilateral stimulation as well. So you're sometimes visually doing it by having them have their eyes follow back and forth. So you're crossing the midbrain line and you're activating both hemispheres while you talk about the trauma. That's part of EMDR. There's more to it than that. But he was doing that process, and I always kind of laugh because the stories behind a lot of these therapies sound like God handed us something. Um, and he was doing this process with somebody. They hadn't had a lot of breakthrough. Um, she was an athlete that was having trouble doing a particular move and just kept not being able to do this particular move in athletics. And at some point in the processing, he was doing the back and forth. All of a sudden, he said he felt like somebody grabbed his hand and stopped it. And he held the spot rather than going back and forth. And all of a sudden, this lady just started processing rapidly a trauma that they had never talked about, they had never processed before. And he just held the spot for like a half hour, 45 minutes or whatever of what they had left of their session. And they got done, and he was like, "What just happened?" And then she went back to doing her athletics, and she was able to perfectly do the move that she had not been able to do before and
That's
came
just a
back.
wow.
Right. Yeah. And he was
Wow.
like, what did I just stumble across? And so he started playing with it and trying different things, and he developed this process called brain spotting, and just realizing that as you hold the spot, and allow the brain to process and allow those things to come out, you can access those traumas that they might not even know how to access. And I think that's the helpful thing, especially with brain spotting, is sometimes it's allowing you to access things that you might not know how to access. You might not know how to make the connections. You don't know why you're acting the way you are. You don't know why you're struggling the way you are. And so brain spotting can really help make those connections. Okay. The spiritual
Love
aspect to
it.
it, I know. The other cool thing with brain spotting is they really encourage whatever therapies you already know, that you already practice. Brain spotting is very open. Combine brain spotting with what you already do. It's very free flowing in that way. And I've been trained in multiple prayer ministry techniques, in helping people do spiritual and emotional healing, through connecting with God and asking questions, getting rid of lies, accepting God's truth. And so I immediately, when I learned brain spotting, started playing around with combining it with some of these prayer ministry techniques, and was seeing just rapid healing happen. And I was like, whoa, because what it seemed like is happening is not only is the physiology, not only is the spiritual and emotional online, like normally is when I'm doing prayer ministry with somebody, but now the physiology is online too. And so it's like all components are online. And what I'm seeing now in sessions is I'll often get the brain spot selected, and then let the brain start to do its thing and make its connections. And sometimes I won't do any additional. Their brain and body just need to do the work. Other times I'll feel that little Holy Spirit nudge of like, okay, let's ask about this. And so we'll start asking Jesus questions, and connecting spiritually in the middle while they're holding the brain spot. And
Yeah, you
so,
and I did that actually because we did a session, so
mhm,
I could experience it and tell you people it's safe.
yes,
That was really important to me to make sure that
yeah,
what I'm recommending is
mhm,
safe, and that indeed what we're saying, I experienced as true, and I
mhm,
totally experienced some of that. Like there were some things I was like, no, I'm not. I don't really want to tell you about it. There
mhm,
were some things that absolutely what you just said happened, and
mhm.
we went to Jesus, and we found some lies, and we uncovered those and released those, and yeah,
And
it was actually
you,
really, really freeing.
mhm,
We found a thought that something that I'd been saying for years that my dad said, and I didn't even realize that it was causing me to trigger to feel like I had to perform a certain way at a certain level, at a certain, like I had equated not being ordinary with having to perform at a high level.
mhm,
And that has nothing to do with not being ordinary. You
mhm,
being yourself, it's impossible to be ordinary if you are truly stepping into who you are and being yourself. Just
mhm.
say,
Yeah, because God didn't make any one of us the same, right? Yeah. And that's the fun part is, I feel like when you add Jesus to the amazingness of brain spotting, it can speed it up even more sometimes, because they'll be having pains in their body, and sometimes I'll get that nudge and I'm like, okay, let's ask Jesus, what is this pain you're having in your shoulder? And then they're like, oh, I'm carrying a burden that Jesus wants me to hand to him. Okay, why don't we hand that burden over? And it's like, boom, pain in the shoulder's gone. And then it goes to something else, and then what do I need? What is this, Jesus? And then they're like, oh, I need to forgive so and so. So we'll work, okay, let's forgive and bless that person. Oh, well, now that pain's gone, and so it can be a very physical, emotional, and spiritual process of the Lord communicating to us through any one of those means. Um, and so it's just really exciting to see people go through that process and get healed in that. So I've been
it
really
was
excited.
really exciting to go through that process and get some healing too. Just
Yeah.
say.
Yes, yeah, and to see healing that you may not have seen in any other method, right? And way of getting to it. So,
Yeah. I completely and totally was like blown away. So I have an advantage actually in brain spotting. We found my advantage, didn't we? Do you remember what it was? I have the
oh yeah,
ability to focus on a single point and change eyes, and it shifts what I'm actually seeing and focusing on without moving my eyes because my eyes don't work together. So there was one spot that was super intense, and then there was another spot that if I used the one eye, it was super intense. If I used the other eye, it wasn't. So I didn't
mhm,
have to like take a break. All I had to do was switch eyes. And I
mhm,
gave my brain a break because
yeah,
sometimes it can get too intense, right? So can you talk?
yes,
I'm taking you out of the
yeah,
spiritual and back to that because I think that's super important to realize that they have
right,
control and
mhm,
they get to make the choices during the session. It's not like it's there.
yeah.
So talk about
So
that.
there's multiple, they call them setups. There's multiple setups of how you can set up for brain spotting. Multiple ways that you can do it. Um, you can do it by, internally them saying, oh, I feel the emotion rising, I feel it going down, and you find the spot that way. You can find it through me as an outside observer watching the neurology and going, okay, I see a lot of activity here, a lot of activation here, let's do this. But you can also, if they're like ramped up and their stress levels higher, the emotion's so high that they feel like they can't handle it. Like I had a session like that where I was like, life is just crazy right now. I feel overwhelmed as it is. I don't feel able to like go into really, really strong emotion. Like I just feel like it'll be too much for me. They have resource models where you can basically find the spot or find the emotion inside of yourself, find where you feel it physically, but find a spot that actually calms it down and actually lessens it and brings them to a place of more groundedness and more peace. And then you process from that place of groundedness and peace rather than from the place, like from a place of high activation and high emotion. And so there's multiple levels of that. There's one-eyed brain spotting where you can cover one eye or the other and see which one causes the emotion to go up and which one causes the emotion to calm down. And so the client can decide, I'm ready to go straight at it today. I got this. I'm feeling it, like, let's do this thing. Let's go for the high activation. Awesome. Or there's the day like I had where it was like, I don't feel like I can handle that today. Okay, let's process it from the eye that has low activation and, back it up to a place where they can handle it and where they can process it at a level that feels doable for them. And so there's multiple layers of that where we can basically back it up to where they can feel like they can handle it, and process it a little bit slower. It can make the process go out a little further, but it can be more handled that way, if that
Right.
makes
Exactly.
sense.
It totally makes sense. And um, so every brain spotting session with you is going to be completely and uniquely different from one
Mm,
person to the next and from one session to the next is what
yeah.
I'm assuming. Like we
Yes.
can't go into these expecting that we are going to know exactly how it's going to go, but we
Mm,
can go into these trusting
mm-hmm.
that we're going to be supported and
Mm,
guided. Um, we don't do them alone, or
nope.
generally. Even
Mm-hmm.
you, as a brain spotter, as often as possible, you get someone to do it with you to guide
Yes.
you.
Yes.
Can you tell us why that guidance is so important?
Yeah, it's that that's what the dual attunement that they talk about is like you're paying attention to your emotions, but also as the practitioner, I'm paying attention to your emotions, and I am that compassionate presence that's really holding space for you in that moment and just being there for you and going, look, you're doing great. Keep going into that deep emotion. I'm right here. Like, I'm right here to support you in it. I'm right here to pull you out if you need it. Like, I'm right here to kind of hold your hand as you go through the process, so to speak. And it's interesting because we'll use a pointer a lot of times, not always, but many times we'll use a pointer to hold the spot for them so they have something for their eyes to focus on. And there's something about it, because when you're doing brain spotting, it's almost like they're digging back deep into the hindbrain, and it goes back actually into a nonverbal part of the brain many times. And so as they're going deep back into that hindbrain, that can feel a little weird. But the pointer is almost like the Hansel and Gretel's breadcrumbs that they know how to find their way back out. And so because they have like this compassionate presence of the practitioner as well as like the pointer, they have this ability to go deeper because they know somebody's there holding space for them. Somebody's there holding the light for them, so to speak. One of the teachers is a diver, like a free diver. And so he'll dive deep, 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 and it's super dark. But there's a boat with a light at the top. And he can always find his bearings because he can just find that light and find back to where the top is. And it's kind of that example. And they
You're
feel
tethered.
you're tethered. Yeah,
kind
you're
of
tethered,
to
and you have
that person,
you have
the
somebody
practitioner.
holding the safety line, so to speak, to help you when you come out. And so you'll see people in sessions, they'll go really, really deep. And I've felt it myself when having sessions done. I'll go really, really deep. And sometimes the practitioner will check in and be like, how you doing? And I just like, it's like I verbally can't say anything right then because I'm so deep in this nonverbal part of my brain processing stuff. But I know they're there and I know that they're okay. And so it allows me to do my process. And there's been times where I've gone into deep emotion in a session and they'll just be like, I'm right here. And they give me that affirmation. And then I find that I can go even deeper into the emotion because I just felt supported. And so I feel that safety to go into this deep, maybe kind of scary emotion and really let it out. And the thing about emotion is, I think a lot of people get afraid they're going to get stuck in it. But the thing about it is when you go into the deep, like straight into the deep emotion, you get through it faster. Like I experienced grief and stuffed it and it came out sideways for 10 years, right? But then I experienced another grief in my life and I went straight at it because I didn't want to do it the wrong way. And I knew what that felt like. And it sucked. I'm sorry. It was awful. Grief is painful, right? But I went straight at it and I was determined to do it healthy. And it took a matter of months to get through the deepest parts of it because I just went at it and went straight at it and really released it and let it out as it was happening. And the process was intense and it was hard, but it was way shorter and it was way less confusing. And so a lot of times brain spotting is like that. If you go straight at the pain, very often it releases. I give people the example of if you have a massage therapist and they find a knot in your back.
I love that.
They
yes.
They push.
That hurts.
Yeah, and you're like,
stop.
ow, that hurts good, and they'll push right on it, which actually causes the pain to skyrocket. But what they're doing is by pressing straight on that spot that's super painful, the muscles then relax and then the pain goes away. So for a short time, intense pain, and then it gets better. And that's kind of brain spotting too, as I encourage people, when you find that intense spot, stick with it. It's like that, we're pushing on that knot. So really go at it. And then those things can relax because we've actually let that emotion out. Another picture is if you have infection in a wound, the doctor sometimes has to lance it, right? And let that infection come out. Not a fun picture, not fun to get cut. But if you let that infection stay in there, it's going to kill you. And so by lancing it, letting all that nasty infection come out, now the wound can heal properly. And it's the same way with emotions and trauma is often stuck in us. Is sometimes we got to go in there and we got to access that pain and let it come out. But it's actually kind of short-lived. You lance it, comes out. Okay, now you can heal. And same thing with those deep emotions is we can let them come out and then we can actually heal because the body's been able to process it and release it. Some people have said to me, clients have been like, you know what? I don't want to go back in my past and deal with that stuff. I want to leave it in the past. I'm like, you know what? The problem is your past is right up in your face. It's not in your past. And we want to put it in your past where it belongs, because right now it's affecting your everyday life. And you need to actually stop going like, I can't see you, and actually look at it, process it, deal with it so you can then put it in the past.
So tell me, that is all fascinating and amazing. Hold on.
Yes.
Tell me, why do you as
Mhm.
Marie,
Yes.
love helping people heal emotionally?
Mm.
What is it that you love about it?
God created each of us amazing with purposes, not just one, but purposes, many purposes throughout our lifetime, and things that He wants us to do, things that we were uniquely created to do. And the enemy can, however he does, he can sense some of that, and he directly comes against those giftings and those things God's put in our life and tries to get us locked up. Give the example of somebody who's supposed to sing on stage and they're deathly afraid of people. Somebody who's supposed to cook for a living and they get trauma in childhood over cooking, and somebody, like shuts them down. And so they swear they're never going to cook again. Just different things like that where you're supposed to speak to other people and you believe you have nothing good to say. And so you don't. And so, however it is, the enemy tries to lock up those purposes, those plans, those identities, and keep you from doing what you're created to do, because you're a key that is designed to unlock many locks. And what he wants to do is keep the lock and the key apart and keep you away from the things that you specifically are designed to unlock. And so, what I love doing is helping people discover, get rid of the lies, get rid of the things that are binding them up and locking them up where they can't be their true, authentic selves that God made them to be. That's amazing and awesome. Unlock that so they can then start unlocking what they were designed to unlock, all these locks that they were designed to unlock specifically. And I love seeing people passionately on fire, passionately being authentically themselves and who God made them to be, because that's when they're kicking butt and taking, ground from the enemy. And it is so fun to see people get unlocked, see people's true passions come out and be untethered and just to go at it. And so that's what I love doing. I also I love the strategy of when I'm helping helpers, whatever I do in helping them immediately gets multiplied, because they're going to go help all the people that they help even better and more authentically and more vulnerably, because they're now free. And so then what I just taught them, they're going to go teach all the people they work with, and it's going to multiply like that. And so there's just something fun in that for me. So that's why I love doing emotional healing stuff and seeing people get free.
Yay. I love that.
Yes. I'm also an equipper. I love equipping
Okay.
people. And I tell people in my sessions, I'm like, I'm not just going to help you do this tool or this thing that I do, not so much with brain spotting, but like prayer ministry tools and things that I do. I'm like, I want to equip you to be able to do this on your own, so that you can continue to get yourself free of lies. You can continue to forgive other people in your life and stay free, because the process of getting free is not a ta-da, I've arrived and now I never have to do emotional healing ever again. It's kind of like learning how to eat healthy, and be healthy. It's a new lifestyle. You have to learn a new lifestyle and a new way of being in order to stay that way. You can't just do a crash diet and then, eat however you want for the rest of your life, right? It's the same way with emotional healing. You can't just like get rid of all the junk from your past and then I never have to think about my emotions ever again. But people want to think that's how it works. Like, fix me and then I never have to think about this again. And I'm like, no, but I can equip you and I can teach you how to get emotionally free and then how to stay free, because you're going to have to maintain it. Just like you got to clean your house on a regular basis, you're going to have to like clean up your emotions and deal with stuff on a regular basis, because we're people and we live in a muddy world. So I'm sorry, you're going to have to shower on a regular basis. You're going to get mud on you. You know, like,
You are going to have to shower.
yes. So that's a process. And sometimes that's discouraging for people because they're like, oh my gosh, I've been working on emotional healing. Why do I still have stuff? It's like, because we live in a muddy world. You know, you're going to have to wash off on a regular basis.
If we start right here and do a quick recap, because we have about 10 minutes left, a quick recap of kind of everything that we've gone through. I'm going to just say one little phrase, and I want you to respond to that, you know, whatever comes to your mind, not with very much, like maybe 30 seconds to a minute or so for each response. So, number one, it's okay to feel.
Yeah. Don't let your emotions run your life, but you have to pay attention to your emotions because they're giving you valuable information, like triggers, to show you that there might be something unhealed that you need to deal with.
And triggers are an opportunity to heal.
Yeah, when you get triggered, it's a value opportunity for like, yay, we can get some healing for that area of our life. Get excited. I got triggered. Now I know of something I need to deal with, and now I can get even more healing. And what the enemy meant for evil to trigger me and try to shut me down, I'm going to use it to go even further and get even more healing. So this doesn't have to happen again. I don't have to get triggered like that again.
So talk a little bit about spider webbing and patterns of connection and thought processes. And you get a couple of minutes for this one because it's a little bit more intense, you know.
Yeah. So with brain spotting, you're accessing parts of your brain. Your brain is amazing at healing. God created it. So complex. And as we hold the brain spot and hold the eye position throughout the session, your brain will start to make connections. And sometimes during sessions, the experience you'll have is going memory to memory to memory, or emotion to emotion to emotion. And your brain will connect the dots for you and show you. And as you do, you're like, oh, now I understand why I reacted the way I did in that situation. Now I understand why I'm feeling the way I am about this decision coming up or whatever. Because your brain remembers everything. And so it will help you make those connections.
Okay, so reactions in our life create the programs that we repeat and the beliefs that we act out of.
So a lot of times when you react, it's not about the present, it's about the past. And it's about a program that you initiated probably before you remember when you were younger, and you responded just in a natural instinct response. But it started this program in motion. And as similar situations arise in your life, your body and your brain go, well, this is how we handled it last time and we're still alive, so let's do that, whether it was really healthy or not. And so you just, boom, you react again the same way. And it can get stronger and stronger sometimes because of that. And so once we've recognized the program is there and that it's running and maybe it's not the healthiest way to respond to things, we can actually go in and delete that and go, yeah, not how I want to respond from now on. Thanks for helping me, you know, stay alive throughout my life, but I want to use this healthier way of responding from this point forward. And so we can go through that process and do that.
Yeah, it's like when we know better, we do better. And if we're acting out of 3-year-old logic,
right,
and we're 60 whatever or 50 whatever, I'm 50 whatever, you're 40 whatever, I think.
36, yes.
36, sorry.
No, it's okay.
I'm in trouble now.
I got to keep that 30 as long as I can.
36. Honey, hold on to that baby until, you know, I say I'm 39 with almost 20 years of experience.
Yes.
So talk about that, you know, like switching from that 3-year-old logic to using our logic of the brain that we have of all the other years of experience.
Yeah, a lot of it is just about when there's trauma or, you know, really difficult circumstance. A lot of times the enemy sows a lot of lies, as well as we make a lot of assumptions and like, I'm always going to do this, I'm never going to do that. We make kind of these vows of how we're going to handle future situations so we never have to deal with that pain again. And so if we can kind of recognize that there's a pattern going we don't want anymore, go and figure out what are the lies that got planted there, what are maybe the vows that I made during that time, and get rid of those, break those things, repent of whatever we need to get rid of. and then ask, the Lord to show us what the truth is and what is a healthy way of functioning. We can actually kind of delete the lies and replace it with truth, and create a whole new operating system of handling things, which can surprise us, because sometimes it's a slow process, but sometimes it can be a very quick change, and it can be surprising, where I've done this for myself, and I'll have a situation rise up where normally I would have reacted this way again, and all of a sudden I'm reacting in a new way, and I'm like, whoa, that actually worked. Like, I'm totally reacting in a different way than I used to. And it's exciting because you can see the progress.
That is exciting. Talk about dual attunement and gentle and supportive sessions with brain spotting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the benefits of brain spotting, and one of the reasons I love doing it as a feeler. Like, I'm a very connected person, very much a feeler, and pick up on people's stuff that I'm working with and can sense stuff. That's how brain spotting functions. Is, as the practitioner, I'm really cluing in to your physiology, to your emotions, and being there as a supportive presence to hold that space for you, so that you can go into that deep emotion, and I'm not scared. I'm right there with you. Like, deep emotion doesn't scare me, because I've seen so many people go through it, and I know that, yes, it might feel scary right now, but I know on the other side of it, oh my gosh, you're going to feel so much better. And so I can hold that space for you and allow you and help you to go through that, so that you can come out the other side feeling better.
Adding the spiritual ministry and techniques, what have you found to be the best spiritual techniques that kind of couple with this, or is it different for every person who comes?
I am really kind of led in the moment. I've gone through so many different trainings that I sometimes I couldn't even tell you which tool I'm grabbing from, because it all kind of merges into, like, here's what I know. But I just try to really stay open to the Lord as I'm going through it. And when I get those ideas popping in my head and those nudges from the Lord of ask this, or see if they need to forgive somebody, or is there something they're holding on to here, just gently, like, adding that in, and that connection to the Lord can really take care of or delete or add really important things into the session, so that they can heal spiritually, on top of the physically and emotionally that's already happening. And it's super exciting to see that stuff happen.
Totally and completely. Mm-hmm. And the last thing I want to talk about is, if someone is afraid of going to do this because they're afraid they're going to get stuck.
Yeah, just remembering that that's partly why I'm there as a practitioner, is to help you if you get stuck, and to help you move through it. There's also many methods that if you feel overwhelmed, that we can back it down a notch or two or three or four, whatever you need to bring it to a level that you can process it. And we can even just do resourcing, where we're basically just helping your body learn how to come to a place of peace and learn to come to a place of groundedness. We wouldn't even go into the activation. We'd simply be training your body how to ground and how to self-soothe, in a sense, so that you can later access that stuff and work through it. So there's a lot of things we can do for those that are nervous about stepping into into the healing process.
Exactly, which brings up the very last point. I know I said that was the last one, but this is the very last one, which is, people are going to walk away from a session with you equipped to understand that they have control, and that there are tools. And even if they don't have all the tools, you're not going to gain all the tools in one session, right? But you're going to get an introduction to the fact that there are tools, that there are processes, that there are ways, and you're there to help them all the way along the way.
Yes, I am all about equipping. I also love to teach classes. I've been doing an online class called Vibrant Life Community, where I've been doing group classes and teaching many of the tools that I use for emotional healing so that people can do it on their own. They don't always have to have a session with me. They could create a community. If you had a Bible study, if you had a group of women or, couples or whatever that wanted to learn how to do emotional healing and how to brush each other off of the mud of this world, I would love to train them in how to do some of these really basic, easy to use tools so that they can brush off the lies and the things of the world, and be in a place of more peace and healing, because that is something I'm passionate about, is equipping people in how to do it. When people do sessions with me as well, I also have, they can connect with me between sessions. I have what I call text booths, or use, like a video app, and they can send me quick messages between sessions, so I can be supporting them after sessions as well. So they can check out my website, vibrantlifeconsulting.com, if they want to book a session with me for brain spotting. I can do everything that I do over Zoom, or over, online platforms. So I particularly did that even before 2020, because I wanted to be able to work with people that were in the field doing ministry, possibly, and be able to support them.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I will put all of those links in there, and you have a Facebook page too, which they
Yes.
can connect with you on that.
Yeah. Search Vibrant Life Consulting. Mm-hmm.
Yep. So I will put that link also in the comments here, so they will be able to go ahead and get that. Actually, I'm going to show it on the screen. Here we go. There is the Facebook one. If you're watching this on the screen, if you're listening to the podcast, I'm going to read it to you right now. www.facebook.com, you know that one, /Marie's Vibrant Life. That is how you find her Facebook page, and to find the website, www.vibrantlifeconsulting.com. I will put that in the podcast notes when I get this out and published. For my podcast listeners, thank you so much for listening. Thank you, Marie, for coming today. It has been an absolute sheer joy to host you here today. And remember to always live your life out loud, folks, and be bold you. Till next week, when we have Sharice Floyd Thompson. See ya.